Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Here's Eddie Frederick.
Welcome to Caribbean Perspective. So glad you can join us. The story that takes the lead in today's edition for Thursday, 9th January 2025, and brought to you in association with our friends at Antillean Group. Today we take an in-depth look at the choice of Stuart Young to replace Keith Rowley in Trinidad and Tobago as Prime Minister, even as the vote was almost 50-50 among the two candidates, Stuart Young and Penelope Beckles. Details after this important message.
Believe in our strength, we'll stand by you. Protection from all perils, big and small. Reassurance we give, it's so clear to see. Peace of mind, that's our service guarantee. We look after all our family. Yes, we do at every opportunity.
Antillean Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.
Welcome back. Despite an almost 50-50 split in the votes for either Penelope Beckles or Stuart Young to replace Dr. Keith Rowley as Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, one senior cabinet minister is denying there is any friction or fallout in the party. More in the CNC3 News report with Akash Samaru.
With a final vote count of 11 versus 9, it leaves little to separate both candidates and raised rumors of a party split almost down the middle. But the leader of government business is seeking to assure the nation there is no friction in the PNM.
I have not heard of any animosity. It was fair. You did say what the vote was, and it shows that we have people within our ranks who could lead.
Mrs. Robinson Ritchie said the Arima MP has already pledged her support behind Young.
She did make a speech after, and she put her full support behind Minister Young.
Now, this has been in circulation today, purporting to be how the vote went. Adding fuel to the rumor was this picture taken on Sunday following day one of the retreat, where most of the names, if not all, on the Beckles-Robinson side of the list were in a huddle with her for over 10 minutes. But when asked if the list was true, the Prime Minister succinctly and emphatically said no. Communications Minister Simon de Nobrega, meanwhile, called the list mischief and said that there's only one team, and that team is called the PNM. Meanwhile, Robinson Ritchie sought to dismiss concerns that having a prime minister apart from a political leader could be detrimental to the PNM, as there have been calls for a special convention of the party to be hastily called to appoint a new political leader.
I think people have to remember their history.
And by history, she said the PNM is not new to having a head of government or opposition who is not the party's leader.
When George Chambers, after the death of Prime Minister Dr. Eric Williams, became the Prime Minister, he was not immediately the leader of the PNM. The same Dr. Rowley became the leader of the opposition. He was not the leader of the PNM.
Robinson Ritchie said she's unsure why people are making this out to be an unprecedented situation and seeking to manufacture concerns. Akash Samaru, CNC3 News.
While the majority of the PNM Parliamentary Caucus favoured Stuart Young to be Dr. Rowley's successor as Prime Minister, people from various constituencies are throwing their support behind Penelope Beckles. More in this K. Marie Fletcher CNC3 report.
When you visit the bar of Arima, one thing is clear. Penelope Beckles is loved. So it's no surprise that many of her constituents were disappointed to learn that Energy Minister Stuart Young was chosen over her to replace Dr. Keith Rowley as acting Prime Minister.
She deserves to be the Prime Minister of this country. She does an excellent job as an MP right now. She does an excellent job. She reached out to the people. You understand? So I was very disappointed when I look at the news last night and see the choice the Prime Minister made. This woman will walk through the market and just greet and meet the people. She's a people person.
So Stuart Young is a kind of, I don't know much, but he looked like a kind of
And though Dr. Rowley abstained from voting for his successor, some Arima residents are convinced it was all the Prime Minister's doing.
This is Rowley and his handler's choice. Penelope Beckers there for so many years, and she worked in different ministries and what's not. So I think she has more experience. And I have many people in the party who were there all the time. As far as I'm concerned, Stuart Young is a newbie.
PNM is a grassroots party. So, we want someone who is on the ground, someone who could relate to people in relation to other PNM supporters. Many of them come from, let's say, less privileged households, so they want someone to be able to relate to that struggle as opposed to someone who has been well off most of their lives.
But it's not only Arima constituents who favored Beckles. People in Port of Spain and Diego Martin also had their views.
Not Stuart Young. I think he's still a little too inexperienced. I think Ms. Beckles is the rightest person.
Don't want Stuart Young. The country going to the dogs anytime Stuart Young go there.
Political analyst Dr. Vishnu Raghunath pointed to Minister Beckles' past possibly coming back to haunt her.
He was one of those few people who has ever challenged it Rowley and that they are kind of arrogant that I would say that we get out of the Rowley administration. People who challenge him does not leave unscathed. And to that extent, Penelope Beckles was not given the support.
It's expected that Minister Young will step into Dr. Rowley's shoes in the month of March. But how long will his reign last? On September 28th, the PNM will host a convention where they will decide on a new political leader. Will that be the opportunity for Minister Beckles to take over? Only time will tell. K. Marie Fletcher, CNC3 News.
The constituents of the area of Port of Spain that Stuart Young represents are cautious about their Member of Parliament being selected to replace Rowley. Stuart Young is receiving support, but with conditions from those he has been representing for nearly a decade. CNC3's Jesse Ramdeo tells us more.
The PNM's political landscape is set to shift. Recent party decisions expected to now herald a new period in its 70-year history. Here in the Port of Spain North St. Anne's West constituency, mixed reactions to news that the area's Member of Parliament, Stuart Young, is now the Prime Minister in waiting, from a symbol of stability to skepticism.
I want him as the PM because I like him.
Back in 2015, Young took the battle from Patricia McIntosh, and at the last general election, he received over 80% of votes, ensuring the party's grip on the seat.
He have the knowledge, and he follow in a step that really and truly, he might be a bit rough, but trust me, you know how to get things done.
There are also those who believe Young's representation has shaped their expectations of him as a leader.
He didn't represent us when he was there. How we go at the time now to represent us as he's going to be the Prime Minister? It ain't going to be no better for us as far as I see it. It's going to be worse, I feel.
And already, those who had his ear for the last 10 years now have a clear message for Dr. Keith Rowley's successor.
Be bold and be willing to do something different to try and get these solutions of what it is we need done in Trinidad and Tobago. Old people have this thing about square pegs in round holes. That is a continuous, feel like a plague with us politically. So be bold and be different to try something different.
Political analyst Derek Ramsamood said the latest development has the potential to disrupt the country's legacy of tribal politics.
Perhaps it's about time that we need to change the dynamic of our politics beyond traditional ethnic voting to that of voting where you can deliver better services.
But political analyst Dr. Indira Rampasad questioned if Minister Stuart Young will be able to gain the support of the working class as well as grassroots voters.
The parties are ethnically aligned. As much as we want to dress it up and we want to avoid the elephant in the room, and some of us will be called branded racist for making these statements, and I don't really care about what they say. The fact is that the politics is race and base aligned. Okay, it's ethnically aligned. But would he get that support?
Ramsamuj also noted that eyes will be on whether Young is able to bridge the generational gaps within the PNM and appeal to the younger electorate. Jesse Ramdale, CNC3 News.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick,
in association with our friends at
Antillean Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.
Opposition leader Kamla Persad-Bissessar, in her usual opposing rants, accused Dr. Rowley of pretending to resign while attempting to maintain control of the country by manipulating Young from behind.
Persad-Bissessar does not believe Young, who received 11 out of 20 votes to be selected as Prime Minister upon Rowley's resignation, will be an independent leader. Labeling Dr. Rowley as a dictator, she argues that Young is merely a puppet, serving as Rowley's, quote, minion rather than exercising independent leadership.
He went ahead with his very devious scheme to install his hand-picked puppet to enable him, Rowley, to continue controlling this country and the PNM through his retirement, he calls it. Rides off into the sunset with $1 million back pay, with a 47% increase in his salaries, which he'll get then as his pension for the rest of his life.
She further claims that Young is unfit for office due to his family connections, with relatives either linked to criminal activities or benefiting from state funding. Persad-Bissessar specifically referenced Young's ex-stepdaughter, who was arrested in 2018 in connection with millions worth of drugs, as well as his brother, who is an executive employee at NCB Capital Markets, which, according to her, received $4 billion in taxpayers' money.
The PNM selected a man with drug-dealing family members to lead them. Is his brother a financier? Is any family member a financier of the PNM? And so it's $4 billion, taxpayer dollars, your dollars, not theirs, $4 billion. And that further, in my respect of view, marks this man, Stuart Young, as a very dangerous pick for public life.
Meanwhile, Persad-Bissessar demanded that Dr. Rowley provide evidence of sending a letter to CARICOM requesting the invitation of election observers for the upcoming general election.
The next steps in selecting a prime minister rest firmly in constitutional provisions and the president's discretion. That's according to political analyst Professor Hamid Ghani. His comment comes after Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley revealed that Minister Stuart Young was the PNM Parliamentary Caucus's choice to lead when Dr. Rowley steps down.
The announcement of the People's National Movement's Parliamentary Caucus's pick of Minister Stuart Young as Prime Minister has stirred political discussions across the country.
Dr. Rowley has signaled that he's no longer willing to serve. And by virtue of that, he is signaling to create a vacancy. In advance of that, the PNM had a caucus meeting. They took a straw poll, and it appears that Minister Young got a majority of the MPs who were present in the caucus and taking the straw poll.
But political analyst Professor Hamid Ghani said this means that he has the support of the majority of the MPs, but the signatures of 21 MPs are needed to be able to satisfy the president that they have a majority of the House.
So that the 21 PNM MPs, and if all 21 voted for Stuart Young, then there is no problem with the president. So I'm seeing that there's going to be an issue because Dr. Rowley said a majority of the caucus voted in favor of Stuart Young.
He said this kind of early succession planning is rare in Trinidad and Tobago and stressed that the final decision lies with the president.
It is a presidential discretion, and whatever criteria the president uses to make a final determination, it is an opinion by the president that that person is most likely to command the support of a majority. So it's a presidential discretion. Everything from here on now goes to the president. The president is the one to make the call and the appointment.
Until Dr. Rowley announces when he is demitting office, the question arises as to what the president will accept. According to Prime Minister Rowley, the membership of the PNM will not get an opportunity to participate in the process until September 28, 2025, during the party's convention.
Parliament is going to stand dissolved on the 27th of August. So that what is happening is that it means to say that the PNM convention is not being held until 1 month after Parliament stands dissolved, if not sooner dissolved. I mean, Parliament could be dissolved at any time along the way here. but it certainly cannot go beyond August 27th. The problem that the government is going to face if they wait that late is that you have to have a budget passed certainly by the end of October.
Professor Ghani said with this in mind, the next question would be at what point is the dissolution going to take place and who is going to dissolve it?
Is it that, Dr. Rowley is going to dissolve before they appoint Stuart Young, and he can be appointed during a period when Parliament is dissolved under Section 76(4)? Or is it that he's going to hand over the reins to Stuart Young and the President is going to agree and appoint him under Section 76(1)(b) of the Constitution, and he, Stuart Young, will decide at a future date when to dissolve Parliament. So who dissolves Parliament is going to be a critical issue.
Professor Ghani said this is the first time that a Prime Minister has announced his successor. Historically, leadership changes have been sudden or prompted by elections, citing examples like the 2001 1818 tie and Dr. Eric Williams' passing in office. Mahalia Joseph Wharton, TTT News.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean.
In the meantime, please follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel for daily regional news and more, in association with our friends at Antillian Group.
Believe in our strength, we'll stand by you. Protection from all, perils big and small. Reassurance we give, it's so glad to see. Peace of mind, that's our service guarantee. We look after all our family. Yes, we do at every opportunity.
Antillian Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.